Ever since I read that gospel lesson earlier this week, it just, something's nagging at me. Just doesn't feel right. It feels kind of like this. Kind of feels incomplete. And that really bugged me. So I looked up that lesson in the gospel and I figured out what it was. They left out the postmodern punchline. It's in verse 38. You know what it is? Pilate looks at Jesus and asks, "What is truth?" Now I don't know why these lectionary people didn't put that in. I think it's a very important question, especially on Christ the King Sunday. Is that true? Is Christ the King? What is truth? Don Cupid, in his book, What is a Story, has an interesting take on this. He says, "So we may begin by suggesting that if indeed stories come first in making the world intelligible and memorable, then the old binary contrast between the true and the fictional must be a mistake." Let me read that one again. "So we may begin by suggesting that if indeed stories come first in making the world intelligible and memorable, then the old binary contrast between the true and the fictional must be a mistake. Fiction goes all the way down. Fiction comes first. First, the world has got to be fictioned into existence from nothing by some kind of story. Religious, cosmological, evolutionary, historical, or whatever. And only then can we find a place for talk of truth and falsity relative to the world as thus produced within the story." I know that's pretty heavy for early on Sunday morning, but that just kind of jumped out at me because what Cupid is saying is everything begins with story. And what is the guiding narrative of my life that shapes the story or the narrative that I'm putting together as I journey through life? Am I crazy after power like Macbeth? Am I despondent and depressed by not reaching my goals like Willie Loman, the death of a salesman? Or maybe I don't really care about anybody or anything except lust, like Casanova. What is the truth behind my story? See, it's not... I think the big thing that trips people up today is that I was brought up on the scientific method in school, weren't you? Nope, there is a definite answer. That's a lie. There is not a definite answer. Even in science, there's Heisenberg, his uncertainty. What is truth? Truth is the story that is on top right now at this moment, guiding and shaping my life and your life. Is Christ the King true? Only if that narrative shapes me and guides me. I believe that Christ the King is true because it offers me a whole lot more than the myopic story of Macbeth or Willie Loman or Casanova. It gives me the opportunity to get into relation with one another. It gives me the opportunity to make sense and have purpose in whatever suffering I may endure. It gives me the power of resurrection right now, in this moment, I don't have to wait to die for that. That's when I take that story as absolute truth, historical truth, instead of setting it free as a fiction that's born down deep into the core of my being that gives me meaning and power and the opportunity to rise from the craziness of Macbeth, to rise from the lust of Casanova, to rise from the depth of despair of Willie Loman, and to live in completeness, in wholeness. Oh, wholeness. For those of you who may be as neurotic as I am,